What's up fellow nerds, I'm your host Dr. McKay and welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be a full history breakdown of everything I can find about the advanced race of humans called the Tollan. This race of humans are far more advanced than the Tauri and have a unique history that I will be covering here. But before we get started, if you like the content, please feel free to like, comment and subscribe for more. And with that said, let's go. So to begin, let's go over the origins of the Tollan people. Now there is no detailed timeline of events, but going over all the data we have, I can with confidence piece together a comprehensive timeline of their history, starting off with their origins. The origins of the Tollan begin with their ancestors on Earth during Ra's reign. The ancestors of the Tollan were taken from Earth, specifically South America, around 5 to 10,000 years ago during the reign of the Goa'uld from 9000 BC, and were transplanted off Earth to a new world that would later be known as Tollan by the race known as the American, enemies of the Goa'uld. This race was the large giant gas aliens we found in the Crystal Skull episode. They saved and sheltered a large group of South American humans from the Goa'uld and transported them off Earth using the Crystal Skull to a new planet they named Tollan. This was a symbolic name which was used to describe two pre-Columbian Mesoamerica empires, specifically Teotihuacan and Tula Hidalgo, pointing strongly towards the Tollan's origins of Earth being Colombia, South America. But regardless of how they was or what transported the Tollan people to the planet Tollan, they arrived on Tollan roughly between 9000 and 3000 BC during the Goa'uld's reign on Earth, and was left to develop on their own. They started much like the humans of Earth after the Goa'uld left, being around the Copper to Bronze Age level of technology. And once isolated on Tollan, the people developed fast, and due to not experiencing close to the 1000 years of the Dark Ages that the Tauri experienced between the 5th and 15th century, the Tollan surpassed the Tauri in technology. They spread out all over their planet and prospered in the planet's rich natural resources, and quickly developed a large civilization as the population rose unusually quick. The Tollan's boom in population and the need to develop faster led the Tollan people into an industrial revolution, much sooner than the Tauri. As with the rich natural resources of Tollan, the people began to strip mine all they could to build their new civilization and technology that fed it. This led to high levels of pollution and mass extinction of animals all over the planet, and this would go on for centuries, to the point it was too late to reverse by the time the Tollan people realized their mistake. However, after this realization of the damage they had done to their world, they sought to fix the damage by seeking out a source of clean energy, and during this search they made huge advancements in science and technology, and during this surge in science they developed many advances, and in doing so became very overconfident in that technology and their knowledge to the point of arrogance. They made many advances but ultimately came to the conclusion the damage they had caused to their world would take hundreds if not thousands of years to fix, so they turned elsewhere and looked to the stars as a means to save their people. During the last 100 to 200 years, so from the 1800s from the Tauri's perspective, the Tollan began to explore space as a means to save their people from the damage they caused on their home world. And just as they began to explore, they discovered within their home solar system another inhabited world called Sarita. The Tollan, being far more advanced than this race, decided to share their technology with Sarita in the form of a power source capable of producing unlimited energy to help them avoid the Tollan's mistakes. The inhabitants, instead of using the technology to better themselves, turned it into a weapon and waged war with each other. And in one day of Tollan, the people of Sarita destroyed their planet, and due to the severity of the destruction, it shifted the planet Tollan's orbit and began a series of events that would leave Tollan unstable. The Tollan people, knowing that their world would soon be uninhabitable, sooner rather than later, and left with no other choice, decided to evacuate to a new world. They sent out many ships and found many new worlds rich in resources, but these worlds did not have Stargates on. The Tollan, not using gate travel as a means to travel anyway, decided having a Stargate didn't matter. So they chose one of the new worlds, and thus they began the evacuation of their people and begin to transport them via ship to the new world and other worlds within range. that would be set up as separate colonies. The main planet found was rich in trinium and it would become their new homeworld. They named the planet Tollana after Tollan and began to settle the world. And along with the colonization of Tollana, several small colonies were established during this time, with one being called Pella. It's unclear on how long the evacuation of Tollan and the colonization of Tollana took, but one can presume it took over decades. The Tollan settled on Tollana on the main continent that they named Venel. The continent was rich in trinium and had perfect land for agriculture. They set up near the ocean and began to build their first new city, among the Roman hills, which would become their new capital. One of the first structures built in the city was the Wall of Remembrance. This wall contained all of the Tollans that had died from the cataclysms of events on Tollan, and was a reminder of their mistakes, and etched in the centre of this wall was a declaration of their highest law, to never share their technology with any species that the Tollan deemed unworthy of. This law was their civilization's highest law, brought on from their past mistakes with Sarita. The Tollan would build quickly, but learning from their past mistakes of overpopulation and overmining from their industrial age, they purposefully only used their clean energy production and eco-friendly construction and mining methods, doing their best to preserve nature. They created a climate control system to help the environment and create stable weather patterns. They built quickly and soon they had many cities on the planet, centered around their new capital. They built defensive weapons called ion cannons to protect the space around the planet and redeveloped their society and government to provide for all Tollan citizens, and created ministries of health, justice, science and space, with all of them reporting to the central governing body, the office of the Curia, the supreme ruling office of the government. The Curia houses a council of members with a High Chancellor to govern the Tollan people, with the High Chancellor being the leader of the Tollan people. The Curia is a democratically elected office with the citizens voting on who should lead them, and all sessions of the Curia are reported and recorded for public access. The Tollan would prosper and grow fast during this time, even contacting their other colonies to aid them or even offer them to rejoin the main Tollan population. By the time the Tollan population had been completely evacuated off Tollan, the planet had completely become unstable and volcanically active. Fearing others may use the Stargate on Tollan to venture there and be caught in the destruction, the Tollan people, after the last evacuation ship departed, decided to task a small group of Tollans to stay behind to disable and destroy the Stargate, to prevent anyone from suffering their mistakes. The team would quickly succumb to the volcanic ash, losing consciousness before they could complete their task. So when the evacuation was complete in the year 1998 by the Tauri's calendar, a group of Tollans were sent back to Tollan, or was the last to be transported off-world, with the task to bury the Stargate to prevent anyone from coming through and succumbing to the planet's disasters. However, the team of Tollans fell prey to the very thing they wanted to prevent, and the entire team succumbed to the environment and was alone, with no one to help them. That is until the Stargate activated, and SG-1, a team from Earth, arrived, and in the nick of time, SG-1 saved the Tollans and brought them back to Earth, where they received medical aid and help. After the rescue, the Tauri took great interest in the Tollans' technology, but with the Tollans being very strict with their technology, after the events of Sarita, refused all requests from the Tauri regarding their technology, and was almost held by the military and possibly be forced to reveal their knowledge. However, Daniel Jackson, disobeying orders, helped the Tollans contact the Nox to help them leave Earth. The Nox subsequently saved the Tollans and helped them get to the new homeworld of Tollana. The Nox also aided the Tollans in building their own Stargate shortly after returning the group to Tollana. This act was so that the Tollans could stay connected to the galaxy, and the Tollans soon became allies of the Nox and the Tok'ra. It's unclear if any sharing of technology was shared or it was merely an alliance of ideals, but nonetheless there was an alliance of some kind. A couple years go by and Tollana is thriving, and in the year 2000 the Tollan defense grid detects two gold Huttucks pursuing a Death Glider in orbit above Tollana. They immediately destroy the two Huttucks using their automated defense grid of ion cannons, and discover after the glider crashed that it was Skara, the host of the gold Chlorel. Skara, briefly in control of his body, pleaded the Tollan for help. The Tollan accepted the plea and made arrangements to begin Triad, a trial to determine the rightful owner of Skara's body. The Tollan sent a request to the Tauri, the Nox, and the Goa'uld to partake in Triad to argue the case, and in the end, the Nox ruled in Skara's favour, and the Goa'uld Chlorel was removed by the Tok'ra soon after. However, after the Triad's conclusion, the Goa'uld attempted to attack the Tollans, and with the help of Tilk and Lyra of the Nox, they managed to repel the attack and defend Tollana from the Goa'uld invasion. The Tollans, thankful for the assist, still refused to share any of their technology with the Tauri, but became more open to cooperation, and a little while after this event, the Tollan, the Asgard, the Nox, and the Tok'ra came individually to the Tauri and accused them of stealing their technology. General Hammond and Colonel O'Neill denied the claims and promised to catch the real thieves, and to do this, Colonel O'Neill had to go undercover. The plan called for O'Neill to steal a piece of Tollan technology as a way in the door to the rogue NID group. So SG-1 goes to Tollana to negotiate an alliance and a treaty with them and ask for technology. The Courier, the governing body of Tollana, refused the request, which results in O'Neill stealing a piece of their technology on the way out, which is all part of the ruse. O'Neill eventually finds and arrests the thieves, and in doing so secures the alliance with the Tollans, and in that moment, confronting Colonel Makepeace, O'Neill solidifies the alliance by saying this:
"You have no idea how high up this goes. You've pissed off the wrong people."
Like the Tollan, Tok'ra, Asgard, Nox, those folks?
They refuse to give us the things we need to defend ourselves against the Goa'uld.
We don't need their stuff, Makepeace. We do need them.
Get them out of here.
With the Tollans now allies, they became more open to talks, but still refused to share their more advanced technology with the Tauri. But they did provide some knowledge to aid the Tauri in developing their own science and technology. A few years go by and the Tollans have become somewhat complacent, and in doing so became victims of Anubis, as Anubis, using the knowledge of the ancients, upgraded his Huttuk shields to withstand the Tollans' ion cannons, and sent the Goa'uld Tanith to test his new shields. The ensuing test revealed the Tollans to be vulnerable to Anubis, and subsequently at his mercy. To stave off complete destruction, they agreed to build weapons of mass destruction for Anubis. However, during this time, the Courier requested SG-1 to negotiate a deal to give them ion cannon technology for trinium ore. This surprise in the Tollan stance around sharing technology arose suspicion and led SG-1 to investigate and uncover the plot with Tanith. With Nareem's help, SG-1 destroyed the weapons and essentially forced the Goa'uld to attack Tollana. The resulting invasion destroyed all their major cities and killed many of the Tollan people. Though few escaped Tollana via ships, most became trapped on the planet, and with Anubis occupying the planet, keeping a huge Jafar presence on Tollana with hopes to capture any survivors and securing any pieces of technology, the Tollan civilization basically came to an end. However, the few colonies the Tollans established before Tollana's fall, one being the colony of Pella, who being the closest colony, sent a few ships to Tollana after the invasion to discover what happened. They managed to rescue a few survivors, but due to Anubis' forces on and around Tollana, they only rescued a few survivors. The remaining survivors would go on to really struggle to survive without their technology and avoid the Jafar that patrolled the ruined cities. Some Tollans would escape the planet and go on the attack against Anubis, but it's unclear on how big that ever got. The Tauri would never hear from the Tollans again within the show's run, and it's unclear if the Tollans ever rebuilt after the fall of the Goa'uld. One thing is certain, the Tollans still remain within the galaxy with the various colonies they established before the fall of Tollana, but whether they rejoined or rebuilt is unknown, but I would like to think the Tauri re-established contact with them and helped them rebuild their civilization. The Tollans were a very unique race in Stargate, being a group of highly advanced humans originally from Earth, which is quite unique in Stargate given that the Tauri is generally the most advanced group of humans. So having the Tollans be so advanced purely from their own technological advancements is fascinating to me, as the Tauri became advanced through acquiring technology from other alien races like the Asgard, Ancients and the Goa'uld, while the Tollans didn't. And that in itself is very unique. One can imagine if they continued developing, they would surpass the Asgard and possibly the Ancients themselves over time, but this is just speculation on my part, but fun to think about. The Tollan society and civilization is also very unique and is worth covering in a separate video, but as this video is about their history, we don't have the time to fit it all in here. I do think though the Tollans needed more of an on-screen conclusion, or at the very least a mention when the Tauri had spaceships, even with just a flyby of Tollana would have been better than forgetting that they ever existed. Because after the fall of the Goa'uld, the Tollan survivors on Tollana would have been free to come out of hiding and rebuild, or at the very least resettle on one of the other Tollan colonies. But we never get any mention in the show and it bugged the hell out of me. But that's the thing about Stargate, there are so many stories and plots left to the wayside, never revisited again, only leaving extended materials and us the fans to pick up the pieces and take a wild guess to make our own theories, and yes, that is really fun to do. I for one would prefer though some canon closure, no matter how brief or small. But that's just me. Well, this has been my full history breakdown of the Tollans. I hope you have all enjoyed this video, and if you did, please feel free to like, comment and subscribe for more. I have been your host, Dr. McKay. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers and goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.